Hi, Jennifer. How are you? I just logged on, so I'm going to see if anybody else is joining us. It's a weird time for you guys. I know it's dinner time. So once I get the hang of doing weekday classes, I will see if I can back it up even a little more. Oh, I'm great. I'm having a terrific day. Can't complain. Oh, hi, Michelle. Hi, Judy. I was just asking Jennifer if 5:30 was too early for you guys, you gals. It's 6:30 here, so it's a good time for me on a weekday evening. I'm a early get to bed person, and I'm up early, so I can't do what Heather does anymore and do the late night stuff. So we'll just wait for like 30 more seconds and then we'll get right in it. It's not too early for you? Well, that's good, Jennifer. I wouldn't mind hearing what Judy, you're saying it's fine. Oh, that's great. Then we shall leave it as is. So I'm excited about this series. I'm not sure if all of you got to join me on, was it Sunday or Saturday? I'm losing track of time. I've been really doing a lot of crafting. The weather's still pretty nice, and I have a lot of stuff to clean up in the garden for winter, but we have to let it get a little cooler. So I have lots to show you too. I've been working ahead on some classes, so I'm going to give you a sneaky peeky after I'm done with this. So let's get into it. So Come Color With Me series. It's going to be actually featuring the Olo markers for the majority of it, from what I can tell. You haven't been crafting much, Jennifer? Well, organizing, get you in the mood, as long as you're in your craft space. So yeah, so I'll be mostly using the Olo, but right now I don't have a big stash. Now these are double-sided. I did give you a little review on the weekend. I just have to go grab my piece of paper because I wrote down some tips on the Olos. And as we play with them, I'll go over these. I didn't want to get them wrong. I was getting confused with the numbers on them, so I went back and I watched the YouTube video. There's quite a few YouTube videos out on them already, so you can certainly get your fill from there. But I'll let you know what I know so far. But I also wanted to do some watercoloring with the Tim Holtz pencils, just to show you the different kind of looks. And when we do our Color Me series, you can use whatever you want to color in your images. And it's just about, we're going to make the Rolodex cards, and we're going to build ourselves a nice stash of different ideas for Christmas cards with the sleigh one. And then after Christmas, we'll start a different one, and we'll throw in some mixed media tips and tricks. So we might do a couple of Rolodex cards, and you can write on the back of them to remind you what you've done. For the Christmas series, the whole idea is make one for your Rolodex and then use it as a template to build from for a Christmas card. At least that's what I'm going to be doing. So let me start with, I'll talk about the Olos a little bit more, so I'll put them up here. And look what I was doing. I started, remember I said I was going to cut out a bunch of the Rolodex frames. So that's what I was doing yesterday. I have 2 more of the bits to cut out, and then I'll have like six of each for now, and that's going to have to do me for a little bit, but we'll get into that. So I'm not going to use all of these. I'm just going to pick a couple of colors. I'm using one of the new Tim Holtz stamps, and it is called Abstract Florals, which I really like. These ones are nice, especially for watercoloring. I'm challenged with watercoloring tiny spaces. But certainly for larger spaces like this, you can really take your time and build the color. I don't know how long tonight's going to take us to do this, but I'm in no rush. So we'll see. So I stamped out 2 of them, and I stamped one on thicker paper. Now you can get what's called alcohol ink paper, but I use the Neenah 100 pound, and it's okay for me. You do get some strike through on the back, and I'll show you that. We can even use the Neenah 80 pound, and you definitely get strike through. But normally this is, you're going to cut it out, or you're going to put the whole thing on your card front, so it's not that big of a deal for me. But this is 100 pound Neenah, and this is Tim Holtz watercolor paper. I do like this watercolor paper the best. I have other brands too when I use it, but why I like this one the best is it's white. Most watercolor papers, there's like it's almost like a ivory. It's really hard to get striking white, but his is really white. Now it may not show that from the reflection, but it is really white. And it has a textured side and a smooth side. So whenever I'm doing stamping, I use the smooth side, and it doesn't change how your watercolors lie down. So it just makes it easier to stamp on. And for both of these, I use the Archival acid-free permanent waterproof ink. Now it's going to be a little bit of a test, and I'm going to see if it bleeds with my Olos. I let it dry overnight, but if you're really not sure if you have a good ink for alcohol markers, the best thing to do is stamp it and then clear emboss it, and then you don't have to worry about it. And sometimes I like that even better because it keeps the black really black. With this sort of thing, if it does smudge, then I will try different ink. I have this Gina K's amalgam ink, and I think that will work, but I know Heather can't get that one in the store. At least I don't think she can. She might be able to. Memento ink works good for alcohol markers. And just regular distress ink, not the Archival, but just regular distress, will do fine with alcohol because it's water and alcohol. Regular Archival will not, because it will smudge. So I'll be interested to see if this smudges. If it does, we'll stamp out other ones really quick. But it's definitely going to be fine for the watercolors. So I'll gonna do some green, well, a green. Maybe I'll take a 2 green. You can tell which ones I like. Peeled paint. And I don't want mowed lawn. Maybe some forest moss. I'll take a 2 green. And colors. It's kind of fall. We'll go yellowy. This is fossilized amber and scattered straw. So I just want one a little bit darker than the other. So I'm just going to put these aside. And for watercoloring, I like having one of these refillable ones, but I don't squirt the water down because then I have no control. And I have just a roll of paper towel that I kind of keep down on my lap, and that's what I use to wipe on. So if I need to get clean, this got water in it. If I need to clean my brush, I just dab it in the water and then wipe it on here, but I usually tuck it down on my lap so it's kind of not in the way. And you can, when you have big images like this, you can take the pen right to the image and put a little of the pigment down. And I'm just doing a look how small, and that is going to go a long ways. And and then add your water. And if your brush is too wet, just sop it up. And you just drag your pigment along. Watercoloring is very forgiving. Now I am going to put in my heat tool, plug it in. And that's the other thing with watercoloring is if you're trying to get dimension and lay some different tones, or you can even use the same crayon and just do different layers and you'll get a darker tone. You need to dry it in between. Even watercolor paper will pill after a bit. My favorite way to use the pencils though is take my brush and the pencil and wetten it. And I just usually roll it around. The first time you do it, you have to kind of work it in and get some pigment, and then I go in. Now this is the darker one, so I don't want too much of that. That was supposed to be just to highlight. And I like highlighting, I kind of look at it as the top, so kind of around the creases. It really doesn't matter which way you choose to highlight. It's going to look good. So I'm just wiping off my brush and I'm pulling out that dark color. I love this type of art when I'm watching a movie or just whatever. And then I'm going to go back in with my lighter color because you can see it's now kind of dark. And light. I'm going to go back in with my lighter color. And again, just lift ink off. And see, this is why I don't really use the water. I just use some water in a cup, or you can put a puddle of water on your glass mat or your surface and pull from that. And then we're just going to mix the dark with the lighter. And like, you can go on forever with building dimension and color. I'm just going to dry that again. Now with coloring pencils, after this is really dry, sometimes I'll take coloring pencils and then just go into the very crevices of the images and really pop that color out. But I like where that's going. I think I'll just take a little tiny bit more of this green and tap it in there. And I'm going to call that done for the green. Maybe I'll get two different colors for the other flower. Where's some nice pinks? I'll do one with yellows and then I'll do one with pinks. Warm lipstick and picked raspberry. That might be too pink. Maybe we'll go saltwater taffy and warm lipstick. Do you guys like coloring? And what do you use for coloring medium? I'm interested to know. So I'm going to treat this as all one flower, but we will add dimension by putting our shading, but I'm going to just lay the color down first. And this image is large enough that you could certainly take the pencil to the paper But I have to say, taking the water brush to the pencil and then to the paper is kind of still my favorite. I feel like I have better control. Anybody enjoy coloring out there, or am I all alone in the coloring world? I'm excited for Heather and Dan to open their new store. I feel so happy for them. I think it's a right move for them, and they just need to settle down, them two. Holy jumpins. I like to paint and love my colored pencils. Oh, that's nice. Okay, Carolyn, we'll catch up soon. What kind of stuff do you paint? Like watercolor painting, I'm assuming. And yeah, I have to say I'm loving these pencils too. So I'm just laying down the color. I'm not being too fussy in my first pass. And I'm rinsing it out because I'm going to go in with some fossilized amber. And it's not right wet, so I don't have to take the heat gun to it right away. But I'm just going to watch it, because if I get my paper too wet, it doesn't matter what kind of quality, if you keep rubbing over it, it's going to pill. Then I think I'll do down here a little darker. And I'm doing inside these petals a little darker. And I'll do in here too. Who's going to be going to the grand opening of the new store? I sent you the alcohol ink ones, but did not like to do the flowers, butterflies. Okay. You like to paint anything, hey? Good for you, Judy. It's just something about it. You kind of get out of your own head and you just play, and anything that has these little markings, it makes shading kind of easy, because it's kind of a way to cheat. Yeah, you definitely get lost in it. I agree there. That's why the picky kind of work. Oh, hi, Betty. The picky kind of work, I call it, is my favorite to do. What about you, Betty? Are you into coloring? I love to color. I always did. As a kid, my favorite treat from a out-of-town trip from my mom was always a new coloring book and a pack of crayons. It wouldn't matter how many I had in the house. To me, that was the best treat ever. And I loved it. Just doing a little bit of shading down here. And then we'll blend it out with the other color in a minute. Doesn't take long, really, if you're not going to be too fussy about it. Oh, drop of water. The other thing you can do too is you can get your pencil really wet and you can flick paint. It's a good way to, if you want like little dots of paint over your picture, it's a good way to do it. So I'm back to the fossilized amber. The darker one was scattered straw. And I'm just going to wet this down a little bit more. And just blend out those colors. Bringing in a little bit of a darker hue with the fossilized amber. And you just blur your lines. You used to love coloring too. I like the style. Maybe have to, yeah. It is so easy, Betty. You really can't go wrong. And because it's watercolor, if you think you really messed up, just dab some plain water on it, give it a minute, and then take your rag and just blot it, and most times it comes right off. I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to stop there. Let's give it a little dry. Things always look better when you let them dry naturally with watercolor. At least I find they do. Heating them kind of speeds up the process, and sometimes the natural way that the ink has to splay, because it's still kind of mixing and mingling under there when it's wet. So that's the yellow one. I'm happy with that. And you could go in with even like another shade, like a brown, and get down really into the nooks and crannies and really highlight it well. So now let's do our pinks. And I think I'm going to, actually, I think I'm going to use the scattered straw for the stem. I didn't realize this one had a little stem. Well, thank you, Judy. It is so much fun. Now, if you have a MISTI, and if you don't go the route of clear embossing to keep your lines really dark, you can leave your stamps right in your MISTI, and just make sure the position of your paper in your MISTI is kind of right down in the corner, so you know, and then you can stamp over it when you're done, so that you can draw back out the black lines. That's a little trick too, and another reason why I love the MISTI. So I'm going to take my lighter shade, which is Saltwater Taffy. I'm going to pick up some color. And you're just going to be patient. You're not going to squirt, and you can dip this into your water too. That's another way you can do it. So, like, you know, you can dip this right into your water and get a kind of head start on the pigment. It's not going to hurt it. You can dip it in your water and then color with it, but you're going to have a lot of pigment. That is for sure. And his crayons, this isn't wrapper. This doesn't peel off, this thing that looks like a wrapper. It's actually part of the pencil. So you can sharpen these when they're dry, and it just sharpens off. It's kind of part of the pencil. Well, this is a nice corally pink. Saltwater Taffy for the win. I just need to have my paper a little bit wetter to help smooth it on. How's the renos going, Betty? I was just saying how excited I was for Heather and Dan. A little bit more water. I don't know if you can hear the lawnmower going. My husband's out mowing the grass. I raced home today. Well, before I come home, I stopped at my favorite nursery picked up some fall plants, you know, because this lady didn't have enough plants. Most of my pots now are empty from the summer. And I just picked up a few. I controlled myself and just did display in the entryway and up against the garage. All of the flowers like that's in the ground is still doing marvelous. It was my potted ones that were looking crummy. We had so much rain and then we had such a hot spell. Okay, let me dry this one. And another tip, when you're drying paper, pick it up. If you put it on the flat surface, it's going to take twice as long to dry because the heat can't penetrate the paper. It's on your mat. So if you just pick it up, it will dry faster. Oh, I think there's 15 of you on? Can't be. My eyes must be playing tricks on me. I don't think I've ever had 15 on at a time. Maybe it's a really good time of the day. Now this is the Worn Lipstick, which is a little bit darker than the Saltwater Taffy. And the same as what I did with the yellow. I'm just going to use the lines. This one here has more lines. Over here I use these ones. But this I'm going to use as my dark area. And the stamps kind of give you tips when they do have these little areas as to where shading can go. But you can make shading anywhere, like some people will do it right underneath the petals. As long as you stay with, if I'm going to do the bottom, then I'm going to do the bottom on all three levels. I'm not going to switch, except up here I'm going to do the very itty bitty top, but I'm going to come down the side. So I raced home and got the plants in the ground, and then I had a bit of dinner, and then I was just watching Criminal Minds. Another one of my bad habits is if I'm going to watch TV, I like those kind of shows. My husband likes to watch the CNN and Donald Trump. I'm thinking I'll stick with the Criminal Minds. At least most of those people have something mentally wrong with them. I shouldn't talk politics. Maybe they're Trump fans. He's not a fan of mine. But that's okay if he's a fan of yours. I'm not into the politics, but I know there's a big debate coming up. Oh, thanks, Carolyn. There's a big debate coming up between him and the vice president. It should be interesting to hear the different perspectives. Now I'll even shade in these little areas here. Like I said, I take kind of signal from the lines. And I'm thinking if this was a real flower, and I was looking at it, it might have a little bit of darkness. Maybe these are petals that haven't quite extended out yet. You know how they get darker before they unfold? And then they open up and they get pale. Now if I wanted to even shade out the center even more, I just take water and you can remove paint. So just with water on my brush, so if I wanted to show like there was a bright spot where it was really pale, that's the beauty with alcohol or watercolor markers. and you can kind of, and even this one I can go back to it and soften the colors if I wanted to. So you just, to take away color, you just add a little bit of water, and you can even dab it off. And I'm quite happy with that one. And give it a quick dry. I think they're pretty. I like them a lot. Well, there now. So that is watercoloring. Nothing to it. Easy peasy. So let's get these away, and then we're going to talk Olos. And they are easy peasy too. I think I was saying when I was talking about the Color Me series, how I have invested a healthy sum of money into Copics, and people that can use them, my gosh, they can use them well, and beautiful, beautiful coloring and different dimensions, but it just would not work for me. I just could not get them to work, and they were very frustrating. These, however, have been much less frustrating for me. And I'm going to tell you some of the things that I really like about them. Let me put my brush away. So first of all, this is two markers. This is a marker, and this is a marker. And then these things are little, I don't know what you call them, connectors, I think is what they call them. And you'll be able to buy them separately, and they're cheap. Oh my gosh, I got butterfingers. So if you wanted to, like, nothing's going to come out of that. It's closed. If you wanted to, you could just color with this, but most of us would find that too short. So these connectors allow you to put two markers together so that you have kind of a size that you can work with in your hand. I love my Copics and have never had issues with them. Well, I'm glad, Judy. I just could never get them to work. The good thing is there's lots of places that you can get comparison charts between Olos in your Copics, so that if you want to try Olos, or if you got a Copic that runs out, you'll be able to go look and see what color best matches it. How do you decide what two markers to put together? Well, that's really up to you, but I'm going with the number system. So this one is 1.1. The closest I had next was 2. So that's kind of how I'll go by it. And on their website, they have these downloadable charts that you can print off for free. And these are all the colors that I currently have. So even though it looks like I have this many markers, I have that times 2 because each one has 2 markers. And you can color in your chart, and that kind of gives you an idea. And then they have this one. I like this one more because when I was using it to do some coloring on the weekend, I wanted the red, and I only have the one bright red, so then I could look at my chart and see what was kind of next where I could do some shading. You love your Olos, they do flow very nicely, so I'm getting to that, Carolyn. So 2 markers on one. In 1 marker of an Olo, it's the equivalent of 2 refills for the Copics. So price point, much more economic. So for every one Olo, it's like filling up a Copic twice. When you need to refill your Olo, there's no mess to it. All you do is you unconnect it. You're going to buy something that looks like this without the nib. You're going to take out the nib of your marker, flip the cap off of your new replacement, put the nib in, and you're done. And that's it. You already got your cover, so you don't need new cover. You can buy replacement nibs when you start wearing yours down, so that's not a problem. So that way the price point is cheaper because you're not buying a full marker. You don't have to deal with any messy refills, and I always used to overfill my Copics and then I'd have leakage. I wasn't skilled at it at all. So that's the other nice point of the Olos. You can get, in one of these markers, I have actually a chisel. It's the same color. It's a chisel and a brush. So this is the brush. I only got one marker that's got the chisel, and I'm not going to get any more chisels. I know this brush, I'm going to get more usage out of it than any chisels. The other thing with Olo is there's no priming your tip. The liquid in there, it comes right to the tip as soon as you start using it. There's no priming. Two things that are not terrible, but you just have to watch out for, is when you take the cover off, like kind of take it off. I didn't have that screwed on right. Take it off with purpose and just don't fling it off, because now I got that screwed in wrong. I'll play with that later. Because if you don't, you might flick your tip and get dots splattered. So just take it off carefully. And the only other thing is when your Olo runs out, you may not get any notice. So with Copics, it will start to get streaky, and you'll get less pigment. With your Olos, it's probably just going to be, there's no pigment left. But if you have a color that's close to it, no problem. You can get by until you get your refill. So there's lots of great things about the Olos. And we will, now the lettering system. Let's talk about that before I forget. So you have your letter. This is yellow. This is orange red. This is violet. This is blue violet. So you get the picture. It's the letters will tell you what color family it is. Now this is where I have to get my notes so I don't screw up. The first number is your saturation number. So it tells you how pigmented it's going to be. From 0, because it could be 0 point whatever, if it's a 0, a 1, or a 2, it's very high pigmented or bright. It's going to be very bright. If it's a 3, 4, or 5, it's kind of medium. And the 6, 7, 8, 9 is very low. So when I'm talking about low, 6, 7, 8, 9, I'm looking on my chart. I know they're 7.8. So it's, I think I got that backwards. I obviously have that backwards. So saturation, they call it the saturation. So the lower the number, the paler it is. So saturation means there's more of the base, so less pigment. So it's more saturated with the base. So the lower the number, the first number, the more saturated it's going to be. So anything with a 0, 0, 1, 2, they're calling a lower saturation. Then you have your mediums, and then if it's a high number like a 7, then they're very dark. So high pigment, low saturation. The second number is the value of the, let me see if I can, sometimes showing is better than, well, if I just take these two. So this is a 2.2 and a 2.3. So the 2.2, so the 2, the second number, is lighter than the 3. If I had the 2.4, it would be darker than the 2.3. So it's your different levels of color. I know I'm not explaining that half as well as what I probably could, but that's the only way I know how to do it. And when I get more proficient with them, maybe I'll develop a better language around them. But you'll get used to them. Those that know your Copics, you'll have no problem, because it's pretty similar. So your paper, just make sure it's not like copy paper. Your inks are just going to get soaked up into the paper and spread almost like watercolor. You do have to have a good solid paper. So like I said, this is Neenah. And your ink matters. I know Memento ink works great for alcohol markers. I don't have any of it. Like I said, I have the Gina K, which works. And I'm trying the Archival Black Soot. I'm hoping, because it is definitely waterproof, but I'm hoping because it's kind of the colors of the Distress, it's not going to run. If it does, I'll have to deal with it. So let's start. So I'm going to color the sleeve. Very easy to stay in the lines. Now this is a nice big image, but even if it was a tiny image, you just dot and it goes on so nice. So there's, I'm going to do the leaves the same color, so I'm putting down my lighter. So this is a 2.3 and it's a yellow green. So I'm going to put down my light, and then I'm going to come in with my dark. And you can do the shading up top, you can do the shading wherever you feel like you want to do the shading. And I know a lot of people have artists, and Judy is probably quite picky as to where she does her shading, because true artists, they really pay attention to the shading. I don't want to flick on my paper. And this is 2.3, so then I'm just going to go over it again. And it blends very nice. Now if you just had one marker, like if you just had the 2.3, I keep putting these on crooked. Oh, I see what I'm doing. I'm going to put the cover on it before I got myself all inky. I somehow screwed that on crooked. I'll take care of that. But if you only have the one marker, you can still do shading. You just keep going over it a little, let it dry, and it dries pretty instantaneously. And then you go over it again. So far this ink is holding its own. So you can get some pretty good shading even with one marker. Now, not all of them. So this is a 2.4 and this is a 2.6. So there's like two numbers in between, but they just flow so nice. Like you can cover an image really nice, and the tip isn't hard. It's nice and feathery. It's almost like a paintbrush. There's no streaking. So that was the other thing. Like you notice, like I can kind of do here and then I can come here, and there's no streaking. It just dries and blends perfectly. I was having a hard time with streaking with my Copics. You just color them in, and you can color really quickly, and it doesn't matter really what direction you go. Yeah, I can't wait for Heather to get the rest of her stash in. She was kind enough to let me have the samples. That's why I have what I have. So that's my first color. That's the light. And you don't have to go with the Olos. You don't have to, like, I'm doing this now by habit, coloring it all in with the light before I go in with my dark, but you don't have to. So I'm going to do my shading like I did with the watercolor. I'm going to do it up here, so I'm going to make this darker. And around here. Down in the corners. Just following the lines of the stamp. And a little bit down here on these corners. And then going back to the same as what I did before, just to blend the edges so you don't see those rough edges. You don't got to be fancy. And with alcohol markers, I'm not going to go over all the dark, because if you go over the dark with something that's lighter, you're going to actually take out the pigment of the dark. And if you want to do that, that's a good way to kind of erase some of the dark, but I don't want to do that. I just kind of want to blend the edges. And it's so easy. It's just so easy. Now I don't have a blender pen yet. So the blender pen, all what's in it is the solvent. So it's kind of like an eraser. Whenever you use the blender pen, it's like I did with the watercolor with the water to take out some of the color. The blender pen, you'll be able to do that. But here's a little trick. I don't have a blender pen, but say I wanted to take out color. I'm going to look at my chart, and I'm going to see what is the palest color I have, and it's this one here. It's the 1.0, or sorry, 0.1. 0.1. So it's this one. It's calling it red 0.1. So if I really want to take out color, I'm going to pick something that has hardly no pigment, and if I go over it, it's going to remove the color. I don't know if you can see what it's doing, but it's like the same thing that if water hit, it's going to kind of erase the pigment. So that is a trick. If you don't have a blender pen and you want to remove some of your color, pick a very, very low number and go over it, and you'll remove the color. So now I'm just going to add the color back in. Now what color do we want to do this one? We'll do the stem brown. Now even though to me this looks brown, they do call this orange red. And if I had all the colors of the Olos in front of me, it would make better sense. But to me this is pretty brown. But they're calling it orange red, and that's okay, I can live with that. And what color do we want to do this one? Let's do an orange. So this is orange red again, but it looks more peachy. And then this is 2.3. So 2.2 and 2.3. So instead of doing the whole thing in light this time, I'm going to start with the darker, and I'm just going to do the highlights just to show you, like, you don't have to waste ink by coloring it all in with light first. I'm going to lay my dark down where I want my dark. I'm just using the lines here. So this is my dark one. And then I'll go over it with, I'll go in between with my next color. So I have to kind of get that habit of doing the whole thing in a lighter color, because that's how I used to color with my alcohol inks, is light, medium, back to light, dark, back to medium, to kind of shade it in. But you really don't have to do that with your Olos. You can go to your dark, and then to your medium. Oh, this is quite nice peachy. And I'm not going to go over all the dark with this one here because it would take the color out. But I am going to blend it, so just a little flicker from the edges of the darker, and you get that blended look. So it's like flicking the dark upward. And you can, if it's like a large, you can do little circles. But I do like these. What do you guys think? So if you decide to try them, I would recommend once they come in, if you really want to try blending, then pick your favorite color and do 2 points apart, like 2.3 and 2.2, maybe 2.2 and 2.4. And that way you get enough variation between the two colors that you'll be able to blend and see what you like. So I'm happy with that. There, that's better. So that is the Olos. Back of the card, not bad. 100-pound Neenah. If it was the 80-pound, it would be a little bit darker on that underneath, but that's not bad. What do you think? I think I like it. I like it. So, alcohol ink and watercolor. You have to almost hold them up to, you can decide what kind of look you want, and depending on what you're coloring, you may decide to use something different. Now let me show you something that I did. Now you guys are going to get a few sneak peeks of some classes coming up. This is the next Color Me series, but I have to say I'll show you how, or I'll walk you through the steps of how I did the backgrounds on this, but I don't have any more of the product, so I can't do the whole thing. But look at this. Isn't it cute? I posted in my picture that it's the, oh my gosh, it's the boards. I'll have everything listed. I'll have the packaging. But this is the little All in Create Halloween set. And these were done with the Olos. And his little face mask is popped up. I think it is adorable too, Judy. And all these pieces came into the haunted house except the moon, which is a Tim Holtz stencil, and I'll show you those. And the clouds, those were another Tim Holtz die. But all the rest, like the boot, the spooky, the characters, well, the characters were in their own package, and then the haunted house, and I put some gold foil behind the house. Lots of glitter. What's actually on there, it's so glittery, is the Distress Mica and the Spritz. But I will go through, I will tell you in order of the steps of how I did the background. But that's what I did on Saturday. But our next Color Me session, we're going to do these little guys. And they are so cute. So that's that one. For those of you that are going to do the steampunk mini album, this is the cover. I won't show you inside, but this is the cover, and there's going to be kits for this. Isn't that cute? So that's the steampunk class. And this isn't a class, but it's something I did. I put it on my blog yesterday. It's the DIY calendar. So you can get these calendars at Unique. The front cover says DIY calendar. So I decided to start a crafty calendar. This month marks a year that I've been with Unique, so I'm pretty proud of that. So this is a picture of actually my craft space. And I pulled out some paper from my stash. This is the Stemperia diary. And so each time you flip it, this whole thing is blank. So you can fill in the numbers. So this is of my backyard for September. And it's like a little scrapbook. And then September, I just went through my stash and pulled out number stamps. I took my Olos and traced around here. Some fun stamps, stamp September, some washi tape. I put down here what I did the cover with and what I did the September with. And I just had fun with it. That's what I did yesterday. So these DIY calendars are like $7.99. Hi, Sam. So, you know, get in there and get them. And all this stuff is flat, but Stamperia has such great stickers. Like this is a sticker. This is a little chipboardy thing. So a little bit of dimension, but not too much, because it's going to be a calendar. So I have that here in my craft room to bring me inspiration. Well, people, that's what I have to show you tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. And do come and color with me. So it's going to be every other Monday. One Monday you'll have a wonderful auction, and the next Monday you'll have me. And we're going to do coloring and with a Rolodex, flip kind of inspiration for a Christmas card. So stay tuned, more to come, and thanks so much for joining me. Have a great rest of your evening.